Alexander here on January 27th, 2015. I'm going to be discussing a topic that I've given a lot of thought to over the last couple of years. I was really inspired by David Ortiz's interview with Freddie Lee, Sifu Freddie Lee. He's a Chinese martial artist who came here with his family from Hong Kong. And he's been a very vocal critic of the UFC, specifically what's called MMA, mixed martial arts. And I happen to agree with him that there's nothing very martial artist about it. It's a blood sport. It's about combat sport. It's about hurting people. It's about being an aggressor. And he made a lot of very important points in his recent 3-part interview with David Ortiz. The links are down below. I want to recommend that people that are fans of the UFC and similar blood sport spectacles, that they look at how in many ways how our society today is a lot like Rome. And there's a big difference between martial arts, the real martial arts, and what we're seeing males and boys emulate today. Now, one of my own unique perspectives is that we do not live in a world where we're seeing genuine tough guys. There's nothing really tough about attacking someone, raping someone, smashing someone's head into the ground, mounting them like you're about to stick something up their butthole. And a lot of the UFC, the MMA, this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which Freddie calls BJ or blowjob Jiu-Jitsu, involves a lot of homoerotic stuff that you normally don't see from men when a real fight is taking place. So despite the fact that people think that this is really about street fighting, it's more about learning rape techniques. Now it is important for women to know how to defend themselves from rape, and so women could certainly benefit from learning rape prevention by learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But two heterosexual males rolling around the ground together on a voluntary basis is it's kind of disgusting. Boxing's where it's at. The real martial arts are where it's at. And things of that nature. MMA and this UFC spectacle and related blood sports, I see what it's done to people. I see what it's done to men. And as we see in society going down the tubes, we certainly see the behavior of boys and males in our society also going down the tubes. So, I want to be real clear here that I'm not against the martial arts. I've been fascinated by the martial arts since I was 13, and I suspect that, it's in my blood. It's certainly in my spirit, and I feel like it's in my soul. And for years I've been kind of disgusted by this lack of honor, lack of emphasis on self-defense, and we're also in a psychotic gun culture, and I'm not anti-Second Amendment, but there are plenty of men out there that love their firearms that don't know the first thing about throwing a real punch. They don't know the first thing about bobbing and weaving. They don't know the first thing about natural circular motion to deflect a dangerous attack, whether it be a fist or something holding a weapon. There's just a big fixation on violence in our society and being aggressive, and there's not enough morality in our world in general. Not enough talk in our society about being real men and defending women, protecting women. We're seeing a lot of men, joining the armed forces. There's no question why there's a strong link between the UFC and the Marines, the Army. Men that are going out there and hurting other people that actually did nothing to our country on 9/11. There's no question why some of these people are UFC folks. There's no question why you see a problem with methamphetamines with some of these fighters. There's no question why some of these fighters look completely psychotic and anything but the martial artists that you used to see in the 1970s and 1980s. And having said that, when I was younger, I was a huge Bruce Lee fan. But Bruce Lee got a fair amount of criticism from some of the more traditional Chinese martial artists that did not want the fighting secrets, if you will, and techniques to be taught to the aggressive West, especially with the history of the West, the United States or Britain and China. It's not a pretty history. It's a barbaric history. And you can look at the West attacking China as early as the British Opium Wars. And that's how China was initially destabilized. So they had good reason for being concerned with Westerners learning the martial arts, if you will, which today is less about an art and more about a blood sport. And so there was perhaps good reason. Not that I would be for the potential murder of Bruce Lee, but if in fact Bruce Lee was killed and it had something to do with that, I don't think it did, but let's just say it did. In other words, motivated by the fact that he taught the West the martial arts or shared with the West, I can understand where that thinking comes from. Look at our culture today, look at our society today, look at how perverted it is, and look at how the martial arts have been perverted. No honor, hitting someone when they're on the ground, you know, borderline attempted rape techniques. You know, it's amazing how many men and women actually don't see this. But it's true. We are in a world where men and women don't see this. We are in a world where men today think that the MMA is actually martial arts, so they're going to MMA first before they actually go and learn a traditional martial art or before they learn boxing. Look how many MMA gyms are out there compared with boxing gyms. Boxing is very important. It's very important that you learn how to be a good striker if you're interested in the martial arts, whether you call it boxing or, you know, Kempo or other styles that involve fast, hard, precise striking. And with the MMA, it's like a buffet of various techniques, but the people that you're seeing aren't exactly the most moral. They're not exactly even the best at what they're doing, which is fighting. They're fighting other people with a similar fighting style, and they are feeding this increasingly aggressive market and audience with homoerotic, take the guy down to the ground, don't stand up and fight him, take him down to the ground, mount him, smash his head into the ground, and when he's down, kick him with your leg. But it's not real street fighting, because in a real street situation, you don't just go down the ground and, you know, if you can't take a fight, just hold on to him and hump him for a little bit. That's not actually how things work in the street. Now, someone can get you down the ground, start smashing your head in, and it's important for men to learn how to stay on their feet. Maybe as a man, you should learn how to sweep someone. Learn a little judo. Learn a little aikido. Learn a little defensive action. Don't just go down the ground and start humping. You know, there's concrete. Look, there's concrete on that ground. You don't want to be on that ground fighting. If you're on the ground, you want to get off the ground. So, if a guy's going to prison, he wants to learn how to defend himself from rape, he should learn a little Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just like a woman in today's society. Learn how to not get raped and fucked in the ass. Very important then to learn ground fighting. And a lot of punks, see what's happening is they're learning on TV, they're watching TV, and they're learning about these deadly techniques that can really fuck someone up. You know, get on top of someone, and while they're on the ground, beat their head in. I mean, this is sick. We live in a backward society where young males, young boys, are learning some really nasty stuff. They're not necessarily better fighters, but they're learning how to be nasty. You know, it's not much different than sucker punching someone. Taking someone down to the ground and beating them without even letting them get up to actually fight. See, you don't see that in boxing. So what's being promoted is unbridled aggression. So do you find it a little bit coincidental that you have these wars of aggression towards countries that did nothing to us on 9/11, and you have this whole generation of, you know, MMA fighters and, you know, people throwing powerful kicks and powerful punches and being somewhat good at it, but it really just being a barrage of violence. And there's been a couple times that I've been attacked in the last decade, and I remember both times kicks coming at me, like right at the solar plex. Now, in no way do I feel that they were trained, you know, Taekwondo experts. Neither of those kicks really connected. The last time a kick was thrown at me was about a couple weeks ago. And the camera that I was holding was kicked out of my hands. And his buddy caught it and threw it in the Willamette River. It was an attempted attack on my person by a number of tweakers in downtown Portland. But to make a long story short, you know, people are learning various techniques and tactics from TV. And TV is showing people some of the most violent. You know, you're seeing the show, how to throw a hard punch. You know, the science of hitting. You know, people are watching this stuff on TV, and, you know, they're learning how to throw someone to the ground and smash their head in, and they're being influenced by it. And so people that, you know, aren't learning a street fight by actually training in a professional martial art or in a professional boxing club or by a self-defense instructor is going to teach them a bit of morality. Instead, they're learning from video games. They're learning from the TV. And this isn't just about fighting. I think this is about rape. I think that, you know, when you see men on the UFC and in these blood sports get up face to face, you know, like boxers used to do, and a man kisses another, you're starting to see more of that. You're starting to see more men kissing other men in the UFC during these stare downs and other homoerotic things. They're clearly programming men to act a certain way, like, you know, they're in a prison. And of course they have this octagon, they have the cage, and you got a lot of people that are actually coming out of prison that are fighting in the UFC. There's many stories about some of these men that are involved in cage fighting, and some of them are absolute monsters. And I've known a few. I've always stayed away from a lot of these dudes. You know, you very rarely will meet a martial artist or a fighter who's aware that there even is a new world order, and that's interesting. We have a serious lack of mature males that have a fighting spirit, that are good at fighting, that actually want to do something about the corrupt government. I'm not saying actually go out and start violence, but, you know, to be a genuine tough man that actually believes in defending women and defending villages and defending cities and having an ability to defend yourself from harm and to teach others how to defend themselves. You know, we're missing that in today's society. We're missing that in today's Portland. And instead we have this barbaric bloodbath that is actually desecrating the male. This is how men desecrate themselves. This is how men put themselves down. This is how men belittle other men. This is how men disrespect other men. You're seeing it promoted. You're seeing this constant focus on fighting. Men in black, men in white rather, fighting. Black and white men rather, in combat. I'm driving down Clinton Street. It's easy to be distracted in Portland. You're not seeing men working together. You're not seeing men fighting together as a cohesive force. It's the men fighting each other over and over and over again. Fighting each other. And we see every way that the media is trying to divide us. You see all these Western men that have been brainwashed into hating brown people and thinking that, you know, Muslims hit us on 9/11. I mean, how stupid can you be as an individual to think that we were hit on 9/11 by actual terrorists living in caves in Afghanistan? I mean, how fucked up do you gotta be? How much of a disruption took place in the family, between the mother and son, between the father and son, to have someone go and sign up for the armed services to violently assault and rape and kill innocent women and children, as well as their men? All these fucking coked out, fucking tweaked out, fucking porn starred out. Porn stars love UFC dudes. They love that aggression. They love that foot in the head. A lot of women today are fucked up. They don't know the first thing about getting a tough guy around them. They don't know the first thing about picking a protector. You look at all these fucking freaks that have found each other. It's like a match made in hell. But I'm telling you what, man, there's a big difference between the martial arts and this homoerotic blood sport. And it's time that young men fucking woke up. Because if they don't grow up and start learning how to be men, this evil machine that we're in is going to fucking grind them and suck their blood. And that's what happens to all these folks. You know, if they were really happy, if they were really feeling good about themselves, a lot of these fuckers wouldn't be messing around with methamphetamines. Or violent video games for that matter. Or beating women, or raping women, or having a woman that's submissive. You know, look at the type of girlfriends that these fucking MMA freaks got. Alright, I'm on Clinton Street. I'm 35th. I'm going to go see a friend. We're going to talk about alternative media. And do some other things. It's always a trip and it's always a thrill, both driving, talking, and recording all at the same time, and being in Portland. Portland is a very distracting place. I'm sure you know that by now by watching enough of my videos. It's a real quagmire of an existence. Anyway, guys, I hope that some of the sharing that I provided gives people a few new ideas if they didn't have them already, that what we're seeing at the UFC is not martial arts. Martial arts teaches people about peace, about inner discipline, about spirituality, about genuine health, about honor, and about defensiveness, protecting people. Everything that you're seeing out of the so-called MMA, mixed martial arts, supposed martial arts, and the UFC is anything but that. The links are down below for a very important, I would even call it historic, groundbreaking interview between Freddie Lee and David Ortiz. Talk to you later.